That's so funny. They're booing you to your face. Speaker Johnson, everyone is saying you're dog shit and you smell awful. What do you have to say to that? We are just about to get to Michael Penis talking to Columbia students, getting booed, and then going on Erin Burnett to also get booed again by Erin Burnett, who herself is not exactly fond of the Palestinian emancipatory cause, but, you know, still is dunking on him a little bit.
Air 7 HD live over the use.
This is the UCLA one. We'll get to that in a second.
Breaking
Let's get to Michael
There
Penis.
are pro-Palestinian protests across the United States spreading violent clashes today between police and students at USC and UT Austin, where more than 20 people were arrested. This follows protests at NYU, Brown University, and Columbia University, where an encampment has taken over part of the center of campus. More than 100 have been arrested. In-person classes have been canceled after 8 straight days of demonstrations. I was on that campus earlier today to interview the House Speaker Mike Johnson. This is what I saw and heard. Johnson walked out. There were hundreds of people on the steps where he and other GOP representatives that he had brought along with him and his entourage spoke. They were, and I'm going to show you here, this is my cell phone video, chanting Free Palestine, heckling, booing when Johnson called for the president of the school to resign. They were not friendly.
Fucking weasel.
They couldn't actually hear the speaker, which I can tell you is a good thing, because much of what he said would have incensed that crowd. And after the press conference, the speaker's team moved us inside into the Columbia Library, where the speaker did interviews. They put that entire space under lockdown because of that large crowd. So here's our conversation right after that, hundreds of people outside when we moved, rushed inside the library, moments after that tense press conference. Speaker Johnson, thanks for your time. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Congress right now. You've chosen to travel to New York, and as you were just out on those steps calling for the resignation of the president of Columbia, there was heckling, there was shouting, there was not a warm reception.
That's so funny. They just hit him with they're booing you. They're booing you to your face. Speaker Johnson, everyone is saying you're dog shit and you smell awful. What do you have to say to that? And then the immediate cut to the students booing him is so awesome.
She's all, I mean, oh God, he also, one of the Muppets is behind him. One of the old man Muppets, the guys who are in the, you know what I'm talking about?
What, this one?
This lady, yeah.
This lady?
Yeah. You know those two old guys that are in the...
I don't, but you know what's really awesome to me is that like Voice of America and NTD prominently displayed on the microphones, because those are like obviously State Department and psychopathic CIA aligned anti-CCP cult operated NTD. It's great. It's wonderful. This is a cutout from Epoch Times for those of you who don't know, who is a Falun Gong operation. They are anti-miscegenation freaks. A lot of weird opinions. Okay, a lot of awesome opinions, but they're anti-Chinese state. So of course, America loves them.
Enjoy your free speech.
Were you surprised at all by what happened?
Well, there was a sea of students who apparently have been involved in the protests here, and I'm not surprised that they didn't welcome our visit because we're calling out their activities. The point we tried to make today is that this is not who we are as Americans. This is not an expression of the First Amendment. This is not an exchange of ideas. This is threats and intimidation of violence against Jewish students for who they are, for their faith. And that's a terrible trait.
Yeah, dude, Jewish students physically have to defend Israel, like literally. Unconditionally, and that's why it was an inalienable characteristic, which, by the way, I feel like is very anti-Semitic to say. Yeah, the mind of the Jew. It has to be in defense of Israel and its genocide. That's just how it works, and that's precisely what these students were very upset about. Of course, doesn't give a shit about the many Jewish anti-Zionist protesters. Clearly. Talking about how it's these Zionists, both Christian and Jewish Zionist students that whose feelings were hurt. And that's really fucked up, which is why the police should kill the students for hurting the feelings of those who defend Israel unconditionally.
Trend that's going on in the country right now. We have these similar types of activities and what are becoming violent protests on campuses around the country.
How are they
and
violent?
Members of Congress.
Yeah. They were violently saying, please put an end to the genocide. There's nothing more violent than...
No,
listen,
he's right, though. He's right. They are violent.
Yeah, he's saying, listen, genocide hits way better when there isn't a bitch in your ear telling you about how unjustifiable it is, okay? And honestly, that is violence. Now, one of my favorite things to hear from right-wing reactionaries is when they become like these bodies in spaces ass woke liberals immediately in defense of Israel, when they're like, silence is violence, complicity is violence. It's like, bro, you're Michael Johnson. You're a rabid, psychopathic, far-right Christian cultist. What the f do you mean silence is violence? Like, the complicity coming from the institutions that allow these objectively anti-Semitic calls to stop Israel from doing a genocide is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
I believe, have an obligation, a responsibility to speak about this and to demand that it come to an end, because it's not good for us.
Oh, by the way, yeah, as we were speaking, USC canceled their commencement ceremony. They canceled graduation as a fuck you to the students. Guess what, dude? You're not going to go along with Israel doing a genocide? Well, sorry. No main stage commencement for you.
So first they started with, they got rid of the valedictorian speaking, right?
Yeah.
And then they canceled any speaking, and now they're just not having graduation at all.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're like, have fun with that. Sorry. It's not shocking. Ironic that Israel defenders love doing collective punishment who dare against Israel. It's class of 2022. No, it's just a photo, man. That's just a photo that they're using. Like, it doesn't, the article is not from 2022. The article is this, like, today, right now. Okay, here, this is USC cancels main stage commencement ceremony, April 25th, 2024. USC announced Thursday that it's canceling its May commencement ceremony, capping a dramatic series of moves that began last week after it informed valedictorian Asna Tabassum, who had been opposed by pro-Israel groups, that she would not be delivering the traditional speech. Fuck media literacy. We just need literacy. True. I think...
No, don't read, guys.
I think this community would benefit. I do feel like constantly saying reading is gay has had has caused irreparable harm in this community.
I bring you books every time I come.
I know, and then I make fun of you for it, and here we are. Now people are just like, "What? I don't know how to read. What do you mean?"
Oh, unrelated but related. I think we raised almost 10 grand yesterday. I don't know what org we're gonna put
from
it
the
with
shirts.
The t-shirts. Yeah. So good job,
Yeah,
guys.
the org is called My Pocket.
It's going straight to me. No.
Yeah, that's right.
You guys tell me where to direct it. I'll direct it there.
Anyway, all right. Getting back to the situation at hand here. Michael Penis. Okay. Here it is.
Was free Palestine.
I'm going to pee real quick.
How is that anti-Semitic?
This is great.
Well, what's anti-Semitic is that Hamas endorsed this protest today. Within the last 2 hours, they issued an endorsement statement and heralded the students here and said, this is the next generation of leadership in America.
Let's go.
If you're getting endorsed by Hamas, that's not a good look. It's not a good
back
sign.
up.
Some of these students apparently are unaware of the atrocities of October 7th, or they're denying it. They deny that women and children were brutally raped and murdered, that infants were placed into ovens and cooked alive.
What?
The things that happened there are unspeakable, and yet they're out there waving flags for the very people who committed those atrocities. This is not who we are.
Speaker, in those early days, I was in.
It's like the babies in the.
You could smell the death and the bodies. It was horrific, and yet what's happened since has been horrific too. And there's a student here, a PhD student at Columbia. I wanted to quote him. He is Jewish. He has written a testimonial about what's going on here right now, his experience on campus. And he says, I'll read it to you, the most pressing threats to our safety as Jewish students do not come from tents on campus.
Oh, Jonathan,
we should be
I know
focusing
Jonathan.
on the material reality of war.
He's
the
great.
munitions our government is sending to Israel, which kill Palestinians by the thousands, and the Americans participating in the violence.
Yes,
Do you think
yes,
that
Jonathan,
protesting
go off.
The humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza,
You guys follow
protesting the
Jonathan on
tens of
Twitter. He's an
thousands of innocent
abolitionist. He's
people
really
who
cool.
have died there,
Very smart guy.
is anti-Semitic in and of itself?
I think there's always a place for debate in the free exchange of ideas, but let's not equivocate on what's happening in Hamas, with Hamas and in Gaza. This is a battle, as Netanyahu said, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, between good versus evil, light versus darkness, civilization versus barbarism. This isn't a close call. We have terrorists who preyed upon and attacked viciously and killed many innocent Israelis. And the idea...
Isn't it so easy to be a conservative? I totally get it. It must be nice, just like to have the talking points at the ready anytime. What's up? I said it must be so nice to be conservative, honestly. They just get to say the same shit, the same bullshit over and over again. He talked about the babies in the ovens.
Yeah, and it's like objectively untrue. Efendim, hayır. Bilmiyorum ama gelemem şu anda baba.
idea that they would be out here in support of that.
Yeah, I like that he said that
You know Jonathan?
I do not. Do
He's
you?
cool. Yeah, he's cool. Guy.
Okay. Yeah, he wrote a dope ass article about being a Jewish student on Columbia campus, where he talked about the threats to our safety as Jewish students do not come from the tents on campus, but I guess from police presence. Yeah.
Based.
Which is very interesting that like Aaron Burnett is doing this though. I think this actually signifies a broader shift in attitude. The fact that like there's any kind of pushback, and I do think that it's because liberal media is always going to be genuinely antagonistic, like open Christian fascism to a certain degree until it becomes the norm. And it's currently still on the boundaries. It's currently still on the edges. And this is why I think like there's this level of pushback, because like this is a right-wing guy and personally is over here talking about how, dangerous it is. Personally, how dangerous it is for Jewish students on campus, and she's saying that that's not the case.
Yes, I'll read it to you. The most pressing threats to our
However, does she offer pushback to
anti-Semitic?
This is a good question for the record. Hold on, I'm going to run it back again.
Violence. Do you think that protesting the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, protesting the tens of thousands of innocent people who have died there, is anti-Semitic in and of itself?
I think there's always a place for debate in the free exchange of ideas, but let's not equivocate on what's happening in Hamas, with Hamas and in Gaza. This is a battle, as Netanyahu said.
Dude, it's so awesome, for me at least, seeing like these guys try to hit the Hasbara talking points in like rapid fire. You notice that it's like always, there's like a little bit of messaging discipline on this, right? But you come across like a moron, like an absolute psychopath when you turn around and you're just like, yeah, well, Prime Minister Netanyahu said like they're fighting good versus evil.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said between good versus evil, light versus darkness, civilization versus barbarism.
Civilization versus barbarism is crazy.
This isn't a close call. Like him channeling that genocidal rhetoric is so hilarious to me, because I don't think that this is going to play well to the broader CNN audience. I don't think that the CNN audience is going to be like, yeah, that's right, it is good versus evil.
In response to a question that's, what do you think about the thousands of dead civilians and murdered civilians? Oh, it's good versus evil. Yeah, sorry. It's just I am an insane racist.
This isn't a close call. We have terrorists who preyed upon and attacked viciously and killed many innocent Israelis. And the idea that they would be out here in support...
Like, it is pretty funny that he's referencing light versus darkness, which was a tweet that the Israeli government put out.
They
deleted it because even they recognized how villainous they sounded. And here is Michael Johnson months later being like, no, it's light versus darkness. I mean, this is the straight up Nazi shit, by the way. That is just one-to-one Nazi rhetoric.
Of that, Hamas is using civilians as shields for themselves. They put their operations under hospitals and schools. They are using civilians in a theater of war, and so it's difficult. Why would someone blame Israel for trying to stamp out the very terrorist threats that are right?
There's no bottom, right? Like the bottom doesn't exist in terms of what they'll say or what they'll justify.
Hasan, that isn't anything like being a Nazi. Wait, what? Saying that you're the civilizing force against barbarism predates Nazism, for sure. It's just old colonial rhetoric. But, That is precisely what the Nazis said as well. Dumb. The f do you mean? A lot of you genuinely think that for someone to do Nazi rhetoric, to do fascist rhetoric, they have to literally be like, okay, dude, take a day off. It's 1:16, brother. It's not even time for the middle of the hour ad break. Like, you're out of your mind.
They're on the doorstep. We should not be dictating to Israel their military strategy. We should be supporting our ally, which is the only stable democracy in the Middle East.
Stable democracy, the best democracy. These are bar for bar lines that you would hear from Israel defenders like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? It doesn't work anymore, man. It doesn't. People know what the fuck's going on. They see it. And these guys have not caught up. The talking points have not caught up to the resentment, the understandable, much deserved resentment that even people in the Western world feel against this barbaric monstrosity of an apartheid regime that is currently doing ethnic cleansing. Okay? And it's not like these people, sorry, I was just going to say, like,
go ahead.
It's not like these people are super pro-Islam or pro-Palestinian lives either. They just think that, like, the violence has completely gotten out of control. Okay? Go ahead.
I feel like resentment is a nice way to put it, you know? I think it's like justifiable rage and anger.
Yeah.
You know, beyond just feelings of resentment.
Yeah. It's also crazy because he basically said there's always space for open dialogue, but they shouldn't be allowed to because why would anyone be anti-Israel? Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's objectively ridiculous that a very powerful Republican figure who is a Christian Zionist and a Christian fascist separately, even though Zionism is fascism, he's also separately a fascist in general for his own domestic affairs, to sit there and be like, yes, these protesters, these student protesters are peacefully protesting for their college endowments not to go directly in funding Israel's apartheid regime and Israel's genocide, actually have to be violently stamped out. You cannot hate Israel. And then he uses the wokest quotes that he possibly can arrive at. Like he's talking like a 2014 blogger, like a BuzzFeed article writer, in the way that he's defending Israel from microaggressions. Like, I can't believe how much these pro-Palestinian students are actually manspreading, and they're mansplaining. Israel is small bean. Israel is a girl. Israel is feminist. They really need to stop with these microaggressions against the students who want to support Israel's genocide. It's fucked up.
Israel could do that would be over the line for you? Because when you talk about stamping it out, I mean, many innocent children have died and are dying at Israel's hands and the IDF.
There have been civilians murdered, but that is not the fault of Israel. It's the fault of the terrorists, the Hamas operators and soldiers, the terrorists who have used these people and put them into harm's way. Israel, I'm convinced.
Yeah, harm's way being Israel, the unstoppable force, by the way. Like, we always talk about Israel as though it's like a natural disaster, which it is, but not in the way that he's claiming. I also do like that he accidentally said murdered. Like, children were being murdered, but it's still Israel is not at fault. It's a tsunami. Israel, both small bean, but also very woke, but also doing a genocide, and also that genocide is good because it's Israel and they're fighting against darkness. You know, the dark-skinned Palestinians, the bad guys. That's how I make up my mind on these issues. That's awesome.
Just pure evil. Just pure evil, that's all.
Yeah.
Doing its very best to prevent civilian casualties. But this is a war, and they're fighting for their very existence, and they are not the aggressors. It is the other side. Some of the people here seem not to understand that, and I think that's a real problem. We can debate the merits of all these things, but what they're doing here is intimidating Jewish students. That's the thing that is so problematic.
All right, so let me ask you about that, because when it comes to...
He said it's problematic.
Yeah, he did.
This is what I mean. These guys are like, every single one of these, like, I love free speech. Free speech means, you know, hate speech is protected. Every single one of them turn into like BuzzFeed article heads, dude.
Y'all, this ain't it.
Yeah. Silence is violence. Your complicity in saying Israel is bad is actually a major microaggression towards Jewish students. Everyone is a liberal at the end of the day, as I've tried to explain to many of you. This is yet another perfect, obvious example of this phenomenon.
That the NYPD, at least as of Monday, have said they've not received a single call from Columbia University of reports of any physical harm.
Well,
Nobody even called the cops. What's up with that? What's going on? It's just they're too afraid. They think cops are Hamas. They think NYPD is also in the pocket of Hamas, even though they train with the IDF and have a branch in Tel Aviv, as a matter of fact. But they're also Hamas. As a matter of fact, IDF is Hamas. Everyone is Hamas.
No physical harm.
right, but you have to speak to these Jewish students who are in fear of their lives, who are cowering in their apartments right now, who are not coming to class. In fact, the administration recognized the threat was so great, they canceled classes. Now,
yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, we literally have to think about the fifis of people who claim that they're in fear of their safety because they want to go out and be like, I love Israel, fuck you guys, we should be able to do a genocide. We have to center the conversation around those guys, okay? We just have to. Now, if you're confused as to why this rhetoric is so, why this rhetoric seems so comfortable for a right-wing reactionary Christian dude to engage with, it's because that's precisely the same exact perpetual victimhood that white nationalists engage with on a daily basis. They are also identitarians, as you know, white identitarians. They also do their own form of social justice. It's just they're social injustice warriors. That is precisely the reason why it's so easy for Mike Johnson to turn around and be like, yeah, these guys are actually doing a microaggression. These guys are actually not centering the feelings of defenders of Israel. Okay? That's what's going on here. And they've done it over and over and over again.
they've come out with this hybrid idea. Well, if you're Jewish, maybe you do want to stay at home. Maybe it'd be better off for you. It is so discriminatory. It's so wrong in every way. The responsibility of a university administrator is to keep peace on campus and ensure the safety of students. Job number one. If they're incapable of doing that, then you need different leadership. I think this is time for a really strong hand.
I'm trying to understand, though, why, as Speaker of the House, this is an issue you would want to get involved with. It's a private university. It's an issue happening here. Why is this something that you are choosing to get involved in and calling for the removal of a president of a private university?
Well, they receive federal funding as well, and Congress is looking at all of these aspects to determine how they're using those funds. Is that appropriate? If they can't fulfill their basic obligations, I don't think the American taxpayers want to be funding this kind of thing. We know that professors are engaging in this as well. Some of the professors, some have been supporting.
We should kill them as well. We should, dude, kill everyone that says Israel is in the wrong. Please, please, we have to kill them. You guys don't understand. We have to arrest them, arrest all of them. How dare they say this? How dare they say this? I'm so upset. I'm so mad right now. We have to take physical action against these guys immediately. It's awesome. You were about to say something, I think. Go ahead.
No,
say
it's okay.
it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's not the right time.
Okay.
Supportive of the Jewish students, but I believe it's a small subset from what I've told. They've allowed this to go on, and it is not okay with the American people. This isn't a partisan issue. This is about right and wrong, and we got to call it for what it is.
That's
And
crazy,
when
dude.
people talk about genocide and say that Israel's engaging in genocide.
It is pretty funny that he's like talking about federal funding going to these institutions after, you know, earlier today, like a couple hours after this conversation, Brandon signed a bill that gave $28 billion to Israel so that it could conduct its genocidal affairs. The fact that we're talking about like American people deserve to cut funding to Columbia University because they allowed some of the students to set up an encampment without killing them.
Students who pay tuition.
Yeah, students who pay tuition, exactly, is ridiculous. These motherfuckers do not have a leg to stand on, okay? Just nothing. Nothing. Oh.
Do you think that that is a legitimate conversation that they should be allowed to have as part of First Amendment rights?
No.
Well, of course. Look, I was a First Amendment lawyer for 20 years. I went
Not
into
a good
courts
one.
and
Holy
defended
shit.
our First Amendment freedoms, religious expression, the right of free speech on campus. I litigated those cases. Of course, the university is supposed to be the free marketplace of ideas. But when you shout down and physically threaten with intimidation and threats of violence the other side, that is not a...
Yeah, except what do you have to say to the fact that that's not happening was basically what Aaron Burnett said. And he was like, well, this is a war against darkness. You know, we have to kill them all. So I don't know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, but what about Shai? You're not remembering Shai.
Oh, true. Shai Davide. The number one victim of this all is Shai Davide, whose feelings are hurt.
a peaceful expression, a peaceful exchange of ideas. That's something very different, and that's what we're saying they need to get control of. When they camp out around the campus and they prevent students from exercising their rights, that's the problem.
Before you go, obviously we're here in New York as there's been threats to your speakership back in Washington. What does it say about your standing as speaker that you are here at Columbia University dealing with this issue right now?
Isn't that funny? He's just like, I've talked about the monopoly of violence being in the hands of the state quite a bit, as you guys know. And the way that we analyze violence is never, the way we see violence is not when the state does it. We are so conditioned to think that that's like not a violent outcome or a violent action in general, but instead what is expected, right? So he's over here genuinely advocating as a member of the state for the violent organs of the state to violently stamp out the students' First Amendment rights that are supposed to be protected by the Constitution. That's not violent statements, though, because he's just demanding more of the state violence that we take for granted, that we think is perfectly permissible, perfectly normal. It's actually the students saying, don't do a genocide, that are objectively violent in his eyes, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
The Speaker of the House has a very important constitutional responsibility. You know, it's an officer listed in the Constitution. The Speaker speaks for the House of Representatives, and I felt it was very important for that voice to be heard, not just about what happens at Columbia.
Why are you avoiding good questions and only focus on the deranged ones? Wait, what do you mean? Are you talking to me? What good questions am I avoiding and focusing only on the deranged ones? What has Michael Johnson said here that wasn't objectively deranged? No, don't pay attention to her. She's being a baby right now. Can you please repeat your vision as to how next actions to proceed in Gaza without fantasy but realistic practical goals? What the fuck does that have to do with college protests right now? I have described this a million times over, but what does that have to do with this? You came in here and said that there were good questions being presented that I was avoiding. What do you mean? Go watch a million different videos I've cut on the subject matter, okay?
About what is happening right now around the country. And we have to stand unequivocally for the right and the good. And I'm calling on all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to speak out against this. Yeah, both sides.
Both sides.
Both sides got to speak out against what? The students protesting?
Let's bring.
There was a, wait, hold on. I brought you this book actually last time I was here.
Elite Capture?
Elite Capture. This is a really good book. It actually talks directly about some of the stuff we're talking about right now, is like utilizing the language of wokeness, but not just doing that type of stuff.
I call it homofascism. Like, it's just like our elites that are fascist objectively on both sides of the political spectrum, utilizing, I mean, I jokingly say that, but utilizing emancipatory language to meet violent ends, to facilitate the violence of the state and try to make it seem morally permissible.
Yeah. It's also like this is a great book. I highly recommend it. It's a quick read. Olufemi Taiwo is awesome. Effectively, just he kind of talks about the phenomenon of like passing the microphone to someone who, you know, or the way that people get tokenized and then utilized for, you know, nefarious purposes. And it's really worth reading. And it's also kind of like emblematic of what happens if you don't have a class analysis, if you don't, and you're not thinking about that. And, you know, I don't think you should be class reductionist. I don't think you are class reductionist, but I think,
no, I am definitely. MAGA communism, baby.
But, you know, it's just like an important thing to think about in these contexts.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because like liberals do this regularly as well, where they couch their like objectively violent anti-progressive takes within emancipatory language, like, oh, well, we have to fund the police because the police defend black people. Actually, who's going to take care of the crime in black communities? Or there are plenty of black cops, as a matter of fact, and that's why, you know, when you want to defund the police, that's you're taking away funds from black police officers. That kind of stuff happens on the liberal front, but it's also definitely something that happens on the reactionary right as well. Utilizing bodies and spaces and language such as that, using academic language in an effort to justify psychopathic, bloodthirsty, fascist agendas. Jesus, listen to these garbage from these two. Why is it that our naysayers never actually have any arguments whatsoever and just simply cry about opinions that they seemingly disagree with, but never even explain why they disagree with the opinions. Just come in and present why you have an issue with what we are saying, and we can have a conversation. The issue, however, is that many of you do not have a point. Hey, down. I'm so upset. That's all it is. I'm upset. I'm upset that I voluntarily came in here. And then heard these two guys talk about things that they're knowledgeable on. And because I don't have anything else to say about it, I'm just going to say, I'm upset. You're stupid. When I call someone an idiot, I usually give reasons as to why I think they're an idiot. Okay? Do that. Give us the dignity of why you have a genuine issue with what we are saying. Offer some valuable insight.
You're doing it right now. You're arguing with them.
I am like this dumbass who's like, one state solution or make U.S. pressure Israel into peace with Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza are utopia fantasies for obvious reasons. Yeah, dude, totally. Make U.S. pressure Israel into peace with Palestinians.
Oh my God, wait.
Is a utopian idea?
Oh.
What?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
Make the United States pressure Israel. Like, one state solution is the goal, okay? It's hard to reach it. But I do find it really hilarious that you said, make the U.S. pressure Israel into peace with Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza are utopian fantasies. How is that a utopian fantasy? It's not a utopian fantasy if America actually had the courage to do that. It has happened in the past. You just don't listen to people who are knowledgeable on the matter, and therefore you have no idea that it has happened in the past. It even happened since October 7. Okay? Wait, what? Okay, we have to guest star this dude. I think if you have a heart, you'll sympathize with the Palestinians, but if you have a brain, you'll sympathize with the Israelis. Yeah, if you have the brain of a fascist, what do you mean? The f do you mean? If you have a brain, you'll sympathize with the Israelis. Stop using idiotic statements, okay? If you have both, you'll see the conflicts for its complexity. It is not complex. There is nothing complex, morally at least, about genocide and ethnic cleansing, okay? Ethnic cleansing and an apartheid is not a morally complex situation unless you're a freak.
I feel like this Piers stuff really got to you.
Why?
Because you're just, you're fired up.
I am fired up. My man said it's actually really complex that settler colonialism is occurring. Why is it complex? Because I want it to happen and everyone is saying that it's wrong. By the way, if you think that this is new for me. Like,
I don't think it's new.
Yelling at gray name chatters, I don't know what to tell you. My mom is laughing from the other room. She said this is nothing. Anyway, it's complex, dude. Yeah. You're such an adult mental advisor. Anyway, you want to watch the vets disgusted by flag burning at anti-Israel protests? I didn't fight for this when they literally objectively
I didn't fight for this.
No. Flag burning is 100% protected speech. Okay? It is a protected action.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Enshrined by the Constitution, protected by the American government, protected time and time again in Supreme Court cases, as I'm sure Lolo could offer, additional perspective on. Obviously, the veterans that went and killed a bunch of goat herders in Afghanistan weren't actually defending our free speech rights. But even in theory, that's the way that they sold it for the longest time. So this guy is wrong even on the propaganda front. By your own accord, AIPAC, a military-industrial complex, is here to say, so there's no way the U.S. would abandon its current status quo in Israel. The practical solution is to have Arab states pressure Hamas into surrendering the future bloodshed. Dude, shut the f*** up, dude. Shut the f*** up. What do you mean? Oh, because the military-industrial complex is here to stay, we just can't do anything? We just can't simply protest? We should just give up? What's next, dude? What else should we give up on? I mean, you are American, so you have given up on everything, you dumb f***. This is precisely the reason why we don't have health care, we don't have free college education, we don't have all of the other social safety nets that Europeans take advantage of, other social democracies take advantage of, because you're cucked, okay? You're a peasant-brained, dumbass cuckold sitting in here talking about good things simply cannot happen. And we mustn't advocate for those good things, because guess what? It's never going to happen. You are just repeating your own nihilistic sentiment. It is an Ouroboros of an argument. You understand? You're like, good things can't happen because I don't think that they can happen. I've given up. So you should too. That's all you have stated so far. Now, obviously, when it comes down to the Palestinian plight, it's easier for you to not give a shit about them. So you're like, we just can't stop the American government. We can't pressure the American government adequately. So we should just stop trying to do so. When people are actually trying to do so, that's the only thing you have, because you have no moral courage. You have no moral conviction. You are a sniveling little worm and a coward. Ridiculous. Am I wrong?
No, you're good.
I mean, it's just so wormy to be like, oh, we just simply can't do anything. The military-industrial complex is here to stay, so we can't do anything. Oh, yeah. Let's go and pressure the Arab states so they can further pressure Hamas, as though they have any way to do so. The Abraham Accords already happened, okay? How much pressure were they able to deliver to the Palestinian population, who was already in a pressure cooker created by Israel? October 7 happened because of this dumbass attitude that you have. This is the exact same defeatist, nihilistic attitude that people presented because they didn't give a shit about the atrocities being committed in South Africa, apartheid South Africa. So they were like, we can't do anything. The same exact sentiment was represented by those who defied change in that situation as well. Sorry, good things can never happen. Sorry, segregation is here to stay. Sorry, the apartheid South Africa will never change its ways. Utopian, my ass. I got timed out, but Stewart's solution is practical and realistic. Who the fuck is John Stewart? You condemned Hamas for their 7th of October, and I'm sure as a reasonable person, you understand how it makes other pro-Palestinians look when they endorse Hamas. No reasonable person would sympathize with pro-Palestinian movement after seeing the videos of 7th of October massacres. Brother, you are literally in the minority in the Western world even. You know that, right? When you say no reasonable person, but not even just Hamas, no reasonable person would sympathize with pro-Palestinian movements after seeing the 7th of October massacres. Well, guess what? Luckily for all of us in the Western world even, the majority is sympathetic to the pro-Palestinian movement in the aftermath of October 7. You want to know why? Because it's not October 10th any longer. We are now in April. 7 months of ethnic cleansing has happened. 30,000 Palestinians have been ruthlessly slaughtered with American weapons and American political cover in the hands of Israel. You think you have these really intelligent assessments. You think you're bringing complexity to the conversation, but it's only complex to you because you're a mentally stunted baboon, okay? You have no emotional maturity, and you think good things can't happen, so everyone else must feel the way I do, not recognizing that the majority of the planet is not in agreement with you, and even the majority of the Western world is not even in agreement with you, regardless of what our politicians do. Jesus Christ, dude. Funnily enough, Ehud Barak tried to do this against everyone's warnings, including Clinton, before Camp David by talking to Assad in 1999 in an attempt to get around the PLO early on. It failed spectacularly and damaged negotiations irreparably. Exactly. You cannot think you can just pressure the Palestinians when they literally live a life surrounded by death on a daily basis, when every aspect of their lives are controlled by a violent Zionist occupying force that ritualistically humiliates them, tortures them, and traps them in prison, either military prison of the West Bank or the open-air prison of Gaza. And they do it in increasingly arrogant, increasingly callous ways because they think, well, the Western world is on our side. So no matter what happens, it's fine. That's how October 7 happened. Don't sit here and act like you actually do think Palestinians deserve to live free. You don't. And you also, oblivious to the reality, think that there is no pressure to the neighboring Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan. Why the f isn't aid going in through Egypt? There's no pressure to Egypt. Egypt is a client state. So is Jordan. That don't seem to help Palestinians. Stewart talked about it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know John Stewart's attitude was so stupid.
Yeah, fuck you, chatter.
I don't know. You can come on board. I can invite you to the stream if you want to dish out some of these ideas. If you can test your mettle in the marketplace of ideas, you know. Sorry, guys. I can never demonstrate moral courage in the face of objective evil, even though I claim that it is objectively evil. But honestly, the greater evil is the Palestinians that resisted, the Palestinians that have no other options. You know what I mean? I saw the Nat Turner Rebellion and I thought to myself, hey, man, these black folks, they got to stay enslaved, big dog. Can't have them rising up. Saw the Haitian Revolution. I said to myself, nope, we got to keep these black slaves servile. There's no other way out of this. It's too scary.
You slipped into a little bit of a southern accent there when you're going down that
Yeah.
route.